Now, all this was happening while I was teaching 2 online courses. And I had students that I've had before. One of them I think I'd had 3 times. So I asked my students how things were going in their previously face-to-face courses now that they were teaching online. Because I assumed that my students who had been taking online courses before would be able to make some comparisons. And I got some feedback was, yeah, it's okay. That's about the best outcome. Most of what I heard were just horror stories. And they fell into different categories. It was clear to the students that some faculty just didn't want to be there. They didn't like what they were doing. They'd been forced to do it, and they were going to do it because they had to, but they didn't really get into it. There were others who clearly had no idea what they were doing, which isn't surprising. They never had the 30 hours of training or the several years of experience that I did. I mean, even with the 30 hours of training, I would say at least my first 2 semesters were pretty messed up. I mean, I was lucky to get through and not lose, don't ever take a course with this guy. My enrollments kept going up. So it was bad, but it wasn't too bad. And I think most of the students hadn't had an online course, so they didn't understand how bad it was probably early on. I mean, going back and looking at some of my lectures now, I cringe. I actually recorded one lecture with the headphones on, and I inadvertently hit a button that mutated my voice to make me sound like a robot. So there was this whole 30-minute lecture with me sounding like I was doing a robot imitation. And some of the students thought it was funny, but it wasn't meant to be. It was just, a debacle. It was clear to them that some of these people, even if they wanted to be there, didn't know what the hell they were doing. There were students who told me that it looked like the faculty didn't have good hardware. Their lectures looked bad. They were messy. It just wasn't smooth the way that mine were. But mine looked better because I had better equipment. I had I'd gone through several cameras by that point, microphones, hardware, all this other stuff, and I had a good internet connection. Most of these people are still probably teaching from Greenville. God knows what the ISP speeds are there now for internet connections. I'm sure they were better than when I lived there 7 years ago. But, they're still not, what's available here in Tampa, which is an urban area. I mean, I have a 300 speed, but I could get 1,000 if I wanted. I just don't think that I need all that much more. So no training. There was also a problem with students. For example, one of my students, who I'd had several times, he had been taking the course from on campus. So he could go from his dorm room, which was wired right into the internet, or he could go to one of the labs or the library and work from there, and he had no problem. When the university cleared everybody out and sent them home, his parents lived in some rural area where they had, he said the internet connection was so bad there, he couldn't even log in and get anything to work. So he had to go move and live with his aunt, who lived in a more urban area where she had a different internet speed. So you had all these students who'd been sent home from ECU to God knows where. And at home, they had their laptops, but maybe mom and dad had a horrible internet connection, or in some cases, no internet connection. So they'd have to, in the library, some of the libraries were closed. So these people are running around trying to find how they're going to hook up when they return home. So it's not just the faculty are having problems, the students were having problems. And of course, the students in some of these courses had never had an online course before. So they didn't know how to use the software, and they had all these questions, which I always get students like that. They're always asking me, well, why won't this work, or why won't that work? And after years of experience, I can tell them, well, did you upgrade your browser? I mean, I have students who, one of the most frequent questions I get when I say that is, what's a browser? They don't even understand a browser. I tell them to have multiple browsers because every computer is different. Sometimes you'll get, if you're working with Blackboard, it will work better in one browser or another browser or another browser. I mean, some have Apple, some have Mac, so it's very hard to help them. But you can give them some advice. Did you make sure you turned this on? Did you upgrade upgrade your browser, whichever you're using, make sure it's the latest version. Is Blackboard upgraded? Uh, there's all these things that if the faculty understands these things, they can help these students who don't really understand how any of this works. But what if you have a faculty member who doesn't understand how things work, and you have a student who's never taken a course online who doesn't understand how things work? Again, it's just a recipe for disaster. There's no way around it. One of the most frequent things I heard from students was that what faculty were doing, because they didn't know what they were doing, they didn't know how to do the videos, or they didn't want to try to figure it out, or maybe they had a bad connection and they couldn't upload the videos. So what do you do if you're that faculty member? If you're either unwilling or unable to use the videos in a sense the way you used to use lectures. So what they were doing was just doing away with the lectures and adding on additional reading and writing assignments. And this really bugged the students because the syllabus you get at the beginning of a semester tells you what you have to do. You have to read X number of books, you have to write so many reviews and so many essays, and take a final exam and all that stuff. And it's viewed almost as a contract. That's where the university tells us to look at it as a contract. This is what you're telling them they have to do. You can remove things from the requirements. You can't add things. I never add a book review. If I tell them they have to do 4, I'm not going to tell them they have to do 5. If things get hairy and maybe I thought, well, maybe I assigned too much, I might knock it down from 4 to 3, but I never push it up. But that's what faculty were doing. Well, I'm not going to do any videos, so you don't have to watch them. Instead, read 2 books, give me 2 more book reviews, and write an extra essay. And for the students, this was no. Don't go there. And I think that was the most frequent complaint I heard from the students about what they didn't like about what was happening in the class. Now, again, this is because of either inadequate equipment, inadequate willingness to teach online, or just lack of training. And it was, as one student said to me, it's all FUBAR. It's FUBAR, Dr. Palmer. It's just FUBAR. So when you look back at the whole experience, it was, as Trump and Carlson and the articles talk about, it was a very bad experience. And it will leave, for many students, a bad taste in their mouth about online education. And the same is true for faculty. I mean, if you were a faculty member, you were thrown in online, and it was a total FUBAR, as one of my students put it, you're not going to want to do it again. And that's a shame. But the problem isn't inherent in online education. I mean, I had students I had 2 and 3 times, online courses, had no problems, telling me that the online courses they were taking with faculty who'd been thrown in to online teaching were all messed up. So the problem isn't inherent in online education. That's what it tells me. The problem is how it was done, how it was implemented. And again, I'm not pointing the finger here entirely at faculty. I mean, they were, like I said, when I was going to teach the first time online, fall 2013, I had the entire summer and 30 hours of training to prepare for that. And even then, there were a lot of issues I had. But I can't imagine if somebody had said to me, I'm on vacation for spring break. Hey, when you come back, guess what? You have to take the 1, 2, 3 courses you teach and prep them, re-prep them, restructure them to be taught online. And, you've got, 5 days to do it. When I teach a new course online, it usually takes me about 6 to 8 weeks to set it up and get it ready and record enough videos to get me through the first third to a half of the course. And then I'll catch up with the others later. That's the first time I teach a course online. It might be a course I've taught before, but you don't have all the stuff to go with it. So it takes me all this time to get ready for that. And basically they had days. And that's what happened to online education. This was really, it was a bad decision, a piss poor decision. Now you can say, well, what choice did they have? They may have had no choices, but that doesn't mean because they had no other choices that it was going to be done well, that it wasn't going to be FUBAR. Now, as far as the faculty go, I would point out one thing. Nobody in my department has taught more and consistently online than I have. There are several others who've been teaching online for a long time, but it's some courses online, some courses offline. I've been teaching exclusively online for 7 years. Graduate courses, undergraduate courses, large enrollments, as I've said already. Now, what struck me was throughout this whole thing in the last spring, not a single faculty member in that department ever emailed me, ever called me and said, "Hey, Mike, any tips? Hey, Mike, I'm having a problem doing this. Any ideas?" Nothing. Nobody ever asked for anything. And at one point I was thinking of doing a video on YouTube and posting it up and sending them all the link, hints and tips. And there were loads of them, little things in the software. For example, in MediaSite dumps all your lectures into its default installation goes to the C drive. Now, most computers today have a C drive and a D drive. There's a separate C drive, which is small, where you have your system files, then you have your storage over on the D drive. At least the last 3 computers I had were set up that way. But it defaults when you install it to the C drive, which means as you record these videos, they all get dumped on the C drive. And the MediaSite videos, some of mine were like a gig. And I had, I think my storage on the C drive was something like, I don't know, it was like, I think it was 150 gigabytes. But, some of my courses have 90 lectures. So there's 90 gigabytes right there. And, I teach 6, 7 courses online. So very quickly what happened was, my C drive filled up and my computer wouldn't work. I couldn't record, it would crash, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I called the IT people for help. They didn't have a clue. They told me, "Oh, maybe buy a new machine or something." But I was digging around. I started searching for all these videos, and sure enough, they had filled up a C drive. So I had to move them all and make the default setting onto a D drive, and then it started filling up my D drive, and then I had to get a separate 2 terabyte portable external drive I could hook up, and then I could move them all over there after each semester would end. So it was all these little things, ins and outs of using the software, hardware, and things like that I could help people with. Nobody called. Now, why? I don't know. Maybe they don't like me. I'm just the old white guy in the department. I'm a fossil. I'm a dinosaur. And what could they possibly learn from me? I mean, they're thrown in teaching online. They're young, they're sharp, they're progressive. They know all about computers. What could they learn from an old guy, like me, who's been doing it for 7 years? So I think in that sense, it is, part of the fault of the faculty. They don't reach out. They don't ask for help. They don't want to do it. So they just get, surly, and the students suffer, and they give online education a black eye. Anyway, if you like this video, please leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you know the next time I post new videos. And until that next time, I'm out of here.